The Philippines is a country of islands, beaches, and incredible culture. But behind the tropical postcard lies a surprising paradox. Despite millions of Filipinos working abroad and sending billions of dollars home each year, poverty remains widespread. Why is it that even with such a massive global workforce, millions of Filipinos still struggle to make ends meet? Today, we're going to uncover the history, the policies, and the realities behind this paradox. The story begins with history. For centuries, the Philippines was a hub of trade in Southeast Asia. Spices, gold, and ceramics passed through Manila, Cebu, and Mindoro. Under Spanish rule for over 300 years, much of the wealth was concentrated in the hands of a few elite families, while the majority worked the land. Colonial policies created a landed oligarchy, limited social mobility, and left a system where ordinary people had very little opportunity to accumulate wealth. Farms were small and unproductive, taxes were high, and educational opportunities were scarce outside major towns. Then came the Americans in the early 20th century. They introduced modern education, infrastructure, and public health, but the benefits were uneven. Urban areas like Manila developed quickly, while rural regions remained neglected. Independence in 1946 did not automatically lead to broad prosperity. Decades of political instability, corruption, and weak institutions created an economy that could grow, but often failed to reach the majority of citizens. Programs like the Land Reform Code of 1963 attempted to redistribute land to tenant farmers, but loopholes and poor enforcement meant that elites often kept control, leaving small farmers still struggling to survive. Fast forward to today. The Philippine economy is heavily reliant on overseas Filipino workers, OFWs. Over 2 million Filipinos work abroad at any given time, sending home around $40 billion a year. Remittances are vital. They support families, pay for education, healthcare, and even small businesses. On paper, this should lift millions out of poverty, and yet it hasn't. Why? One major reason is government policy and systemic failure. While OFWs contribute massively to the national economy, the government has historically failed to create high-paying jobs domestically, especially outside urban centers. Industrial policy, infrastructure development, and investment in manufacturing have lagged behind neighbors like Vietnam or Thailand. Rural provinces often lack good schools, roads, or reliable electricity, making entrepreneurship or high-value work nearly impossible. For example, a skilled carpenter in Leyte may be just as talented as a worker in Manila, but without roads or electricity, their productivity is limited. Then there is inequality and elite capture. The Philippines has long been dominated by political dynasties controlling local and national resources. Even when programs exist, like the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program, conditional cash transfers, or rural development projects, implementation is often slow or targeted toward politically connected areas. Millions of Filipinos work hard, but the system still favors a small elite. Cultural and societal factors also play a role. Filipino families often prioritize sending children abroad for work rather than investing in local businesses or education that could generate wealth domestically. It's a survival strategy. A parent might become an OFW in Saudi Arabia or Singapore, sending home monthly remittances, while their children help with household expenses rather than pursuing higher education. This cycle keeps the economy dependent on remittances rather than domestic productivity. Another challenge is brain drain. Highly skilled professionals, nurses, engineers, IT specialists, and seafarers often leave for better salaries abroad. While remittances help families, the country loses the talent that could drive innovation, build industries, or improve healthcare and infrastructure locally. For example, the Philippines produces over 20,000 nurses a year, but many leave for hospitals in the US, UK, or Middle East. Local hospitals and clinics struggle to fill positions, limiting access to quality healthcare. Natural disasters also exacerbate poverty. The Philippines is prone to typhoons, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions. Every year, storms like Typhoon Haiyan in 2013 destroy homes, crops, and businesses, pushing vulnerable families back into poverty. Government disaster response has improved, but slow recovery, inadequate insurance, and lack of coordination mean millions are constantly rebuilding from scratch. A farmer in eastern Samar might spend years trying to restore his coconut farm, only to have the next storm wipe out progress. Corruption and bureaucracy remain persistent challenges. While there are anti-corruption initiatives, red tape and inefficient local governments often prevent resources from reaching the most needy. Even programs intended to support small farmers, fishermen, or local entrepreneurs are delayed or mismanaged. For instance, subsidies for rice farmers may be delayed, forcing them to take high-interest loans or sell crops at low prices. Meanwhile, urban elites benefit disproportionately from government contracts and subsidies. Education, too, remains uneven. While universities in Manila, Cebu, and Davao produce world-class graduates, rural areas often lack schools with basic resources. Students in Mindanao, for example, may have no internet access, outdated textbooks, and poorly trained teachers. This creates a cycle where children from poor families cannot access the same opportunities as urban students, even when remittances could help pay for school. Finally, there is over-reliance on remittances itself. While sending money abroad keeps families afloat, it also discourages long-term investment in local industry. OFWs may spend on consumption rather than entrepreneurship, and families may prioritize short-term survival over building assets that could generate wealth locally. So what's the takeaway? Poverty in the Philippines is not about laziness or lack of ambition. Filipinos are hardworking, resilient, and incredibly entrepreneurial. Millions work abroad, support their families, and invest in local businesses when they can. But structural issues, historical inequality, weak government support, insufficient domestic jobs, brain drain, natural disasters, and mismanaged programs create a cycle that remittances alone cannot break. Yet, there is hope. The Philippines is rich in human capital, natural resources, and creativity. Programs to support small businesses, improve education, and strengthen disaster resilience are expanding. Cities like Cebu, Davao, and Manila are growing as tech and industrial hubs. Initiatives like the Build program aim to improve infrastructure nationwide. With consistent policy implementation, investment in infrastructure, and smarter governance, the cycle of remittance dependency can shift toward domestic economic growth. So the question isn't just, why are Filipinos still poor? The bigger question is, how can the Philippines harness its hardworking citizens, at home and abroad, to create a sustainable economy for everyone? And if it succeeds, it could finally turn one of the world's most remittance-dependent countries into a thriving, self-sufficient economy.